What's up guys, it's me Travis. Welcome to your 21st Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically finish our our list activity and kind of talk through all this nonsense that's going on, because I know most of you guys are confused. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of this error for the most part. And we're just going to go over and see what the error is. It says surround with a try and catch, because basically we could say whatever we want. We could say, starting point blah blah blah, and be like, yeah, create a class for that, and it's going to be like, hey, you tried to trick me, there's no class like that, and I spent the past 4 hours trying to do that, and basically our application isn't going to look like that. So we need to surround this with a try. So we're going to go above here and type try and put a bracket, and then we're going to also close off our try bracket right here after we try to start the activity, and then we get rid of that error. The next thing we need to do is catch an exception. For example, we're going to use the exception type class not found. So again, if this class is not found, it's going to give us that exception. So we're going to say catch, and then we have to define the exception within parentheses, and again the exception type is called class not found exception. We're going to label this exception, or this, give this variable the type, or the label E, and then we need to create a new bracket. And I'll try and keep all the brackets so you guys can keep track of everything. I remember that was kind of difficult when I was a new programmer. So there we go, E dot print stack trace. Again, this is just for debugging. We'll get into this stuff later, probably, maybe. I mean, it's not too important. It's basically going to throw it around and not worry about it. So there we go. We kind of have our brackets set up. But now let's actually get into making this application useful, because now each time an item is clicked, it's just going to start up our starting point class. So what we want to do is we want to have it start up a class according to the items that's clicked. But before we actually do that, let me just do an overview of what this application is doing and what we set up. So we set up a string array up here called classes, and we set up a list array, or a list adapter, which is basically like a list view. And within the list view, it has list items, which we defined here, just the standard kind of look of the list item here. And each list item is going to have one position within our string array. So we're going to have 7 list items total. And when any of those list items are clicked, it's going to call this onListItemClicked method. And it's also going to give us some information. It's going to give us basically which list view is clicked. It's going to label that L. It's going to tell us which view is clicked. It's going to label that V. And the most important one that we're actually going to use, it's going to tell us the position of within the list view that was clicked. And basically that's going to coincide with the position of our string array, so we know kind of the text that was clicked as well. For the most part, think of it like that. It also tells us an ID. So what we're going to do is go right within these brackets here, and we're going to set up a new string. We're just going to call this string local class, or I don't know, we're going to call it cheese, just so we don't have to think and all that good stuff. So what we're going to set this string equal to is basically, we're going to say like our classes array that we set up at the beginning, and we can set it up to something like 4, for example. And basically what this would be equal to, or this is the 4th position within our class array up here. So we have position 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So basically it's the same thing as saying, at the moment it's the same thing as saying this. So we don't want to actually do that, but that's kind of how this variable is going to work. Our cheese variable is going to be equal to just one spot of our classes array. But since we're getting the position, it's giving us that data, we can use this variable that they called position within this class. Oh, I'm sorry. And we want to also move this string below the super line right here. So I'm sorry for that. But okay, there's our string variable, and we can use this position kind of data that's being passed in. So we can just say position within here, because again it's an integer, so it's going to tell us what position was clicked. So now cheese equals basically the position. So the 0th position was clicked, this cheese variable is going to equal starting point. The 5th position was clicked, it's going to equal example 5. So now what we can do is we can set up a class according to which position was clicked, or which list item was clicked. So we can do that by using this string variable, because again this class method basically is using a string within its parentheses. So what we can do is we can delete this, but still make sure you have your period there after your package name, and we can just say plus string, or I'm sorry, plus cheese. I was thinking of string cheese because that's delicious. But there we go. So now it's going to open or give this path to whatever list item was clicked. So if position 0 is clicked, it's going to say our package name plus starting point, and then it's going to create a class variable, and then it's going to set up an intent according to that class variable. Again, I showed you guys a new way to do it where it takes a context and then a class variable, and then it's going to start that activity. Now if we click, for example, position 5, again it's going to set this equal to examples 5, and it's going to try to set up a class variable for our package name example 5, but since we don't have that, we're going to get an error and it's not going to work, or it's not going to work, or I'm sorry, I said that twice. It's basically just not going to work since we don't have that class, and it's going to catch, or it's going to create an exception called exception not found, and we're just going to kind of log that within the debugger. So that's what that catch is doing. So hopefully that kind of made sense, guys. But that's kind of how you can use Java by, instead of typing a ton of lines of code, you can just kind of use these or get some information from a method and then use it within there to do that. The only other thing we're going to do real quick is set this up in the manifest. So we're going to go into the manifest, and I must have been messing around with this, so just going to fix it real quick. Your manifest should be looking like this. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to copy the starting point activity and paste it again below. And we're going to change this to our new class called menu. We're going to give this the action name menu. Then what we're going to do is we're going to open our splash class up here and change, instead of it starting up the starting point class, we want to start up this menu class. So we're just going to use the action name that we just set up in the manifest. So there you go. Now our application should be working. I'm just going to test it out, make sure I don't get any errors. And again, I know guys, I know this is probably confusing. You probably don't understand everything, or maybe even 5% of that list activity you guys understand. Don't worry, because it's going to get easier. We're going to get into some simple stuff in the next tutorial. So thanks again for watching, but there we go. We have our list activity started, and if we click like examples 1, 2, 3, it's not going to do anything. It's going to throw that exception. But if we click starting point, it's going to open up our starting point class. So, and again, we did that through setting up a class variable instead of using the action name. So thanks again for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next tutorial. Have a good one. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 20-second Android tutorial for the new Boston. And like I said, we're going to get into some pretty simple stuff now that you guys seen kind of the framework of how Android works with manifest, the intents, opening up activities, what an activity is, what the life cycle is. So now we're going to kind of break it down into simple applications. We're going to build a ton of those simple applications that you guys can kind of familiarize yourself with the Android and what it can do. So the first little application we're going to build is just messing with some text within a Java class. So what we want to do is we want to set up a new layout, and that's all we're going to do in this tutorial is just define a new layout. So again, you right click on your layout and go to Other, and then under the Android folder click Android XML file. And we're going to call this one text. Again, every time you label a layout, it has to be lowercase .xml. Make sure it's a layout, hit finish. And what we're going to do is we're going to set up an edit text. This is how we're going to get some user input. And so I'm just kind of introducing you to some new stuff within the XML. So what we're going to do is say edit text, and then we define it as always. So we're going to give us some room here to work with, and we're going to say the Android layout width is equal to your mom, which will be fill parent. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Fill parent for the width, and Android layout height. But you know, that's a good your mom joke. If you guys ever get schooled in that game, just say your mom is so big she fills the parent, and everyone's gonna be like, oh man, that was a sick burn. But there we go. We kind of have the setup for our text view, or I'm sorry, edit text, and that's kind of what edit text looks like. You can put some input in there, some text or whatever. And we're also going to give it an ID because we want to reference it in Java. So Android ID equals, again, within quotations, at plus ID / and then ET for edit text, so we can kind of remember it, and we're going to say commands. Yeah, that's fine. Commands, and we're also going to, just to show you guys some other stuff that you can do, we're going to say Android, there's a function called hint, and then you just hit equals, and we're going to say like type a command and then end quotations. And as we look at it, it kind of has this type of command thing within there, and then when you click, or when you run the application and click on it, that hint is going to go away and you can type. So that's pretty cool. You can also add text, but if you, like if we said text here, just like when we used with our button, there will be text in there called type a command, but when they click on it, they're going to have to delete that text that's in there. So a hint just kind of gives them a hint, and then when they start typing, it's going to go away. So there we go, that's what a hint is. And then what we can also do is something kind of cool, Android password. And what this is going to do is there's two commands, true and false, or true and false. So if we say true, that's going to basically star out their input. So we're just going to go with that. And there we go, we have our edit text for the most part set up. What we also want to do is set up a button, and we're going to say button, and then Android. Actually, we're just going to drag and drop a button in there and then edit it. Then we're also going to drag and drop a text, or text view. There we go. Command Shift format or Control Shift format if you guys are on Windows. And let's just check this out. We might want to change the label to button results, and we're going to change the text for a text view to invalid to start with, and we're going to say T for text TV results. That looks pretty good. Maybe we should do for the width for the text view, we're going to say fill parent as well, and Android gravity to be center. Nothing too new. Basically, we got introduced to the text, or the edit text, for the most part. That's all this tutorial is so far. I'm also going to teach you guys about weight here in a second, so just want to make sure it kind of looks the way I want. Maybe we'll fill the parent for the button as well. There we go, that looks pretty good for the most part. Actually, we're going to finish up this in the next tutorial just because the time for the most part. But again, just a simple XML layout. Introduce this edit text, nothing too special yet. But again, this is kind of going back and doing the easy stuff. So thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 23rd Android tutorial for the new Boston. What we're going to do in this tutorial is some more XML, show you guys some more customized features that you can use and methods, and also some other widgets that we can throw in there. So what we're going to do first is basically go into your graphical layout and use a toggle button. I'm going to show you guys how to use this. We're going to throw this in between our text view and our button, so right there. And then what we want to do is have this toggle button on the same line this button is. So now we're going to define it in the Android XML here. So I realized the last tutorial I was saying Control Shift format, and it's actually Control Shift F. So that's what you guys want to do, or Command Shift F if you guys are on a Mac. So then just format it, and then what we want to do, like I said, is get that toggle button on the same line as our regular button. So what we can do is set up a new linear layout, and I'm just going to kind of separate those two so we have some working room. And we're going to set up a new linear layout that's going to be horizontal, so those buttons are next to each other. So what we're going to do is a greater than sign linear layout, which you guys should be pretty much familiar with. And then we're going to use our closing statement, cut it and paste it below our button and our toggle button. So there we go. Now what we need to do is set up kind of the linear layout, what we want it to be, what we want it to cover. So we're going to say Android layout width, and we're going to set that equal to fill parent, and Android layout height is going to wrap the content. The only other thing we really need to define right now is the Android orientation. We're going to set that equal to, again, horizontal. There you go. And now let's check it out. It looks pretty good, but what's happening is, again, it's pushing that toggle button off the screen because our button is filling the parent. Now I'm going to introduce you guys to something called weight sum and weight. So what we need to do first is make sure, since this is a horizontal view, and that's what we're going to work with, is basically the width of both objects. So the first thing we want to do is set both the widths to fill parent. Now it sounds kind of strange because, you know, it's not really going to change anything, but we're going to say fill parent, and if we check it out, nothing really changed. But now what we can do is we can apply some, like a total weight value within this linear layout. We're going to hit Control-Shift-F again, kind of format it. Okay, that didn't turn out the way I thought it was. But basically, we can add a weight sum up here within this linear layout. Then we can distribute some of the weight within each item, and it'll take up kind of a percentage of what's available. And since the whole width is available, that's what it's going to distribute. So how we're going to set that up is we're going to go into this linear layout where we define some stuff, and we're going to set up the total value. So we're going to say Android weight sum is the command, and we're going to set it to something like 100 because 100 is pretty easy to work with. Then you can kind of give them percentages. Now we're going to go into our first item, our button here, and we're going to give it a weight value. So we're going to say Android, and it's actually a layout weight value. So that's why we had our layout width fill the parent, because that's what the percentage is going to go to, the layout. So we're going to say layout underscore weight, and we're going to set this equal to 50 just to start with. And then we're also going to define 50%, or 50 value for our weight, because we want our total weight to equal 100. So 50 plus 50 is 100. Again, free math lesson for you guys. Let's check that out. There we go. We kind of have them both set up for the most part to get it 50% of the whole available width. So that's kind of the introduction to the weight value, but and how weight sums work and all that great stuff. But the only other thing is you'd assume like 75%, or if we put like 75 here and 25 here, that the 75 would have a greater distance, but it's actually the opposite. So we're going to say the button is going to have like 20, and the toggle button is going to have 80. So if we check that out, that's what it's going to look like. Basically, this has 20% even though we defined it as 80, having a weight of 80, and this is we've set as 20, and it's going to have 80% of the whole width. So there we go. One last thing, I might as well do that in the next tutorial. I think I'm running out of time here, but I'll catch you guys then, and we're going to work with some XML real quickly in the next tutorial. Have a good one, guys. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to your 24th Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again, it's me, Travis, and what we're going to do in this tutorial is basically just kind of clean up this little activity with some padding. I'm going to introduce you to that method, as well as kind of move this toggle button up a little bit, or cut off the bottom a little bit for the most part. And also we're going to kind of set this to on when our Java starts, or this activity for the most part. We want it to start with the toggle on, and we'll also change this text, I guess. So nothing too big, and it's going to be a quick tutorial. Basically what I want you guys to do is go up to your first linear layout. This is the one that will fill the whole screen and defines everything else within it, and just add a line of code within the opening bracket. Pretty simple. We're going to say Android padding, and we're going to put like 10 dp, something like that. well, let's do like 25 dp, just so we get a desired result. There you go. There's just a 25 density pixels of padding throughout this whole linear layout that defines the whole basically edge of this XML layout. You know, padding's good for cleaning up your application, making it look a little bit nicer, as well as I don't know, like my room's padded. I don't know why there's padding all over my walls, but you know, it's good for safety as well for the most part. But for XML, it's good just to kind of clean up your code and get things organized a little bit better. Now what we're going to do is just basically you can add padding within a direction. So what we're going to do is use that on this toggle button and just basically cut off the bottom 10 pixels. So we're going to find our toggle button, and as you can see, I started right there. But we're just going to add again one line of code, Android padding, and as you can see, you can do padding around the whole thing, padding to the left, padding to the top, bottom, right. And we're just going to select bottom and do 10 density pixels as well, and check that out. That looks pretty good for the most part. Now we're also going to add one more line of code to you know, get that to turn on when for this XML for the most part. Again, you can't really change anything in the XML once your activity starts. You have to define everything within Java. So we want kind of, you know, our XML looking the way that we want it to look when our Java class starts or sets the content view. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Android. Again, if you just put the colon, you can see all the methods you can use for the toggle button. And there's one called checked. We're going to set checked equal to true. And you can set that equal to true or false. Basically, if it's false, it would be off, and true, it's on. So there we go. That looks pretty good. Let's set this button up now to, or just change the text to try command. And hopefully this will all make sense what I'm actually building here in the next tutorial, where we kind of define everything or set up the Java and build our application. I'm also going to change this button reference. I thought I said you guys might have it changed already, but I'm going to say TG, or I'm sorry, toggle button TB, and we're going to call it password. I believe I said that. I don't know if I did or not, but just change the reference to TB toggle button password for the most part, and then we're good to go. And I will see you guys in the next tutorial where we're going to start with the Java. So I'll catch you guys then. Have a good one. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to your 25th Android tutorial. What we're going to do in this tutorial is basically get our new activity set up and, you know, add our references and introduce you guys to a little bit of Java. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new Java class. You guys probably already know how to do this, and we're going to call this class text play, whatever, something like that. And going to open that up. Again, this is going to be a regular activity that you guys might be familiar with, should be, hopefully. And extends activity. Again, we're going to import activity, and we're going to add the onCreate method by, again, source override unimplemented methods. And this is probably the last time I'm going to show you guys how to get your activity set up, so you know, pay close attention. I wasn't even going to show you in this tutorial, but I thought I'd show you one last time just so you guys know what's going on. And now all we need to do, since this is a regular application, we're going to say set content view. Again, have this equal, and this is just setting up the reference to the XML that we just created. So r.layout, because it is a layout dot text. And there we go, we have our class set up for the most part. Now we also, anytime we set up a new activity, we have to define it in the manifest, if you guys remembered that. So I'm going to open up the Android manifest, and what we can do is we can copy and paste one of the default activities that we have set up and paste it. And then down here we're going to change again the text to, or our class name to text play instead of menu. And also what we can do is we can delete this whole intent filter. And I'll explain why in a second if you guys haven't figured that out. But why we can delete that intent filter is because all it's saying it's a default category. Sorry, it's a default category. So We won't really need that because this is going to kind of assign it as a default category anyways. That's just kind of for a special category like a launcher. The other thing is the action name. And we aren't opening these activities anymore by the action name because we're going to go into our, our menu class. And again, it opens it by reference to the class name. So we don't even have to get the action name anymore because we're referring to the class path. And the other thing that we're going to do real quickly is set up, instead of example1, we're going to call this text play. Again, just like that class we set up, exactly the same text, case sensitive and everything. So now our list activity will be able to open this class. So that's why we kind of set up that list activity. I know it's kind of confusing to go through, but you know, it's an easy reference to access all of our all of our new activities that we're going to create. So hopefully everything's set up and it's going to work now within our emulator. But the last thing we're going to do is just set up some references, and you guys probably know how to do this as well. So we're going to say button, because we have a button, and we're going to call this check command. So that's what we're going to call our button. Again, we have to import the button and set it equal to, or create that bridge over to the XML. We're going to say button find view by ID again, r.id dot, and we're going to look for a button. Is it button results? Yeah, it must be. So we're going to use button results. And I'm just going to, well, no. Then we're going to set up a toggle button as well. And the nice thing is basically the name is the exact same as the name in XML. So you guys, if you ever forget what type of variable you're setting up, most likely it's the same name. So there you go. We're going to call this password, or pass. We're going to call it pass toggle, or pass tog, like that. And set that equal to something. We're also going to, import it so we can use it as a toggle button. And find view by ID. This is kind of a repetitious tutorial. We really don't probably need to go on anymore. I just want to make sure you guys are set up properly here. And again, we're looking for the TG or TB toggle button password reference. And the last thing we have to set up, well, two more things, I'm sorry. An edit text. We're going to call this input. Going to set it equal to edit text. Find view by ID again. And then edit text commands. See, that's why I kind of use this kind of reference, so I kind of know if it's an edit text or whatever. It makes it simple for me to remember. You guys can label those however you want, those identifiers. Again, you have to import edit text, and we also have one last one, which was our text view. And we're going to call this display for the most part. That's a decent name, whatever. And we're going to set this equal to text view. And text view results. So there we go. We basically have everything initialized for the most part. And I just wanted to review that because it's been a while since we used or worked with a regular activity and kind of made these reference bridges over from the XML. But again, this is probably the last time I'm going to show you guys how to set up an activity. But remember, every time you set up an activity, you want to define it in the manifest, and we're also going to change our menu class so it adds to the item for the most part. So we're going to save it and run it real quick. Make sure that list activity works. Sorry, I was messing around earlier. And that's kind of what the I'll get to that in a second. Next tutorial or so. So hopefully this works. I don't know. Pretty boring tutorial. Really didn't learn anything new. Just kind of reviewed. But it's always good to review a little bit when you guys are new. So there you go. Now we have, whoa, I think my mouse just died. But now okay, no we don't. But now we have that new item, and again, it's when we click this, it's referencing it by the class name and starting the activity due to the class name, which will open this up. If you guys can't get that to open up, make sure that this list view item is the exact same as that new class that we created, or that new activity, and also make sure that that activity is defined in the Android manifest. So thanks again guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial where we'll do some Java programming. Have a good one. What's up guys, welcome to your 26th Android tutorial for the new Boston, again with me Travis. What we're going to be doing in this tutorial is basically getting our toggle button working. We're also going to introduce what the final, basically making a variable final and what that is in Java. So what we're going to do is we're going to have this toggle button and we're going to set up a on-click listener, because it's kind of a good review because we've done this in the past as well, and you guys will get familiar with this because it is kind of confusing the first time you see it. But again, we defined all of our variables up here and the reference to the XML. We created a toggle button called passTog, and it's having this yellow error because we aren't using it. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the on-click listener by typing out the variable name, again within our onCreate bracket, so it'll be the within the second bracket right here. And so we're going to say passTog, and then we can set the on-click listener by hitting dot set on-click listener. And there's also an option of set check change listener, but I want to use the set on-click listener because later I'm going to introduce something else. So use the set on-click listener, and again we're just going to finish off the bracket right here before we define our on-click listener, just so we don't get confused within all these brackets and all this code that's going on. So again, we don't have an on-click listener, so we're going to say new view dot on-click listener. And you guys will again get familiar with this. It's kind of looking sketchy right now, but all you need to do is click right here and it will set it up for you. And if it didn't, retype it out. It should give you a little help, or Eclipse should give you a little help, and then you just click it and it'll set that up. Otherwise, you guys can kind of look at how this is set up at the moment. And here we go. Every time the the toggle button is pressed, we're going to want to do something within the onClick method. So we're going to go within this bracket, and what we're actually going to do is we're just going to change our edit text from kind of the password setup that we did. Basically right now we set up the edit text to have a password set to true, and that's going to kind of block out whatever we type in, give it those little stars or dots or whatever. So how we're going to do that is we're going to create an if and else statement. So within here we're going to say if, and then we're going to have a bracket. Basically we're going to define something. If this is true, we're going to do whatever is within this new bracket that we just created. Else, meaning that it's false, we're going to do whatever is within this bracket. So there we go. We have a lot of brackets. I'm going to try and keep those all on the screen so you guys can follow along if you get confused. But basically, if you start a new bracket, hit enter, it's going to finish it for you, and then you just do else, new bracket, hit enter again. There we go. We have our thing set up. But what we want to check is if the toggle button is set to true, or if it's turned on. And if it is, we're going to do something. If not, we're going to do something in this else statement. So how we're going to define that is by going referencing our, again, variable passTog, which is our toggle button. So passTog, and we can hit period and use a method called isChecked. And it's a Boolean, basically meaning true or false statement. Those are the only two options. So if it is checked, it's going to be true. If it's false, it's not true. So if it's not checked, then it's false. Now what we're getting is a error over our passTog because we're using it within like a sub bracket, or basically a sub bracket, you guys can think of it, and or sub method. And if we hover over it, gives us a recommendation to change the modifier to the type final. So we're going to click that, and what that does is it adds this modifier called final right before we define what our variable is. Now basically what final means is it's not going to change. Since this toggle button is always going to have this reference bridge over to the XML and not going to change from that reference bridge, we need to say that it's going to be final, because that's never going to change. It's always going to be that reference. So what we can do is say if is toggled. Basically that's the majority of the lesson I want to show you guys is this if or else, but we're actually going to get into the coding of setting up the input type for the most part if we want it to be a password type or a regular text in the next tutorial. So get kind of familiar with this layout. Again, we set the onClick listener and we set up an if or else statement within our onClick method. And we also set this to final because that reference is never going to change, and that will allow us to access that variable within these sub methods as well. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next tutorial. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 27th Android tutorial. We're going to finish up our toggle button and check it out, make sure it works. In the last tutorial we set up this if-else statement, and basically it's going to check if our toggle is pressed or if it's on, and then it's going to do whatever is in this statement, and if it's off, it's going to do whatever is within this statement. And it's going to go through this method every time the toggle button is touched or pressed, or clicked, I should say, because that's how this works, because we set up an onClick listener, and every time it's clicked, it's going to go through this method and check for us. Now what we can do is we're going to use the edit text variable that we set up here, and we have it referenced to our edit text in the XML, and we're going to change that. So we called the edit text input. So we're going to say input, and we can hit dot, and then what we're going to do is we're going to set the input type. And basically, you know, there's the password type in a text view or a number for the most part. You can make them only be able to put in numbers, stuff like that. So we're going to say the method set input type, and as you can see, it's a text view type for the most part. And within the parameters, I don't know if I want to show you that. Okay, let's copy and paste this, and this is going to be if it's false. So if it's off, we don't want to hide the password. So what we're going to do is we're going to refer to the input type class and say input type, and then hit dot, and we have certain types of text that we can have within as for our input type. We're going to use the one called type class text. Now that's just going to be that's just going to be plain text that you can see, nothing special about it. That's how you'd set up just your plain text. So if the toggle is off, it's going to be plain text. Now we need to kind of do the same method for if the toggle is on, and it's going to be a little bit confusing. I mean, this tutorial isn't so much about learning how to set the input type. Well, kind of. That's basically what this tutorial is, so I shouldn't say that's not what it's about. But knowing all the fine details at this moment isn't that important. It's like I said, we're building kind of a reference application that you guys can go back and refer to when you guys are developing your own apps. So, and learning the Android along the way, obviously. So how we're going to set the input type to be a password or the starred, or basically let's see if I have it pulled up. Yeah, see, like right now if we put Travis, this is kind of setting the password as for that's what it's going to look like. It's going to star out our text. So that's what we're going to set up if the toggle is set to true or if it's checked on. And what we're going to do is say input type dot type class text again, and you're like, what? Well, that we aren't done. That's why I didn't want to set this one up first. This is just saying we can put text, numbers, all that good stuff in there, and then we're going to put this line, like a line like that. That's not an L. Basically, that's the, I don't even know what that's called actually, but it's the button right above your enter or right above your return key, and you have to hold shift to hit it. So you put that line, and then you also put another input type or refer to the input type class and hit dot type text, and then variation and variation password. So that's going to change it to basically back to the stars. And I know that's kind of confusing why we had to put two different things in there. Don't worry about that. But yeah, that's how we'd set that up. And now again we're getting an error because we're using the edit text within a subclass again. So what we're going to do is just change that edit text to be final, and it should get rid of those errors. Now let's check our application, make sure it works. Again, we're just kind of getting familiar with Java. I'll leave this up for a second so you guys can pause it and make sure everything's spelled right within the brackets. But yeah, we're just making sure, we're just walking through the Java process still, and making sure you guys are following along for the most part. But yeah, kind of a lame tutorial, my bad. But hopefully you guys will like this application after we get done. It's going to explain a lot of Java and how we can reference stuff and use some certain methods with text. So here we go. We say Travis, and since it's toggled on, it's under stars. Well, actually, since we defined it in XML, we said Android : password equals true. It's going to be stars automatically, and we also had this set to true as well when we started. And then if we toggle off, it says Travis, and then we can toggle back on. So, you know, kind of a lame tutorial, but hopefully you learned something about the set type or input type and set the input type. Alright, I gotta go to bed, but I will catch you guys later. Thanks again for watching, and have a good day. What's up, guys? Welcome to your 28th Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again, we're going to be working with this text play class, or this text play activity that we set up. We're just going to set up our actual button. We've set up and pretty much finished our toggle button, but now we want to set up our check command button. So again, just go down below this line of where we closed off our setting up our onClick listener for a toggle button. Should be 2 brackets below. We're still within the onCreate method, and we're just going to quickly set up our button called check command. So we're going to type out the variable name, check command, or you know, chkcmd, and then hit dot set onClick listener. You guys should be getting pretty familiar with this. We're just going to finish off the statement so we don't forget later, and then we're going to, you know, hit new view dot onClick listener, enter, and it'll set it up for us. Now what we're going to do within here is basically we're going to see what text is in our edit view, and it's going to compare it to some commands that we're going to set up. So what we're going to do first is set up a new string variable, and we're going to call this check. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull from the edit text called input that we set up. So we're going to say input, and we're going to say dot, and we're going to say get text. It's a method that we can use that's editable from the edit text class, and this is just going to give us what text is within that edit text. And then what we're going to do is set it to a string, or convert it into a string variable. So we just hit dot and use the method toString. And you guys can always read over here to get a little more information if you guys want. But there we go. Now every time we click this check command button, it's going to change this check variable that we just set up to whatever is in our edit box. And again, here's our edit text. It's going to get the text from the box for the most part, and then convert it to a string. So those are some methods you guys might want to use for, you know, your edit text when you're working with those. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say if, and then you guys are kind of familiar with the if statement, hopefully. We're going to say if check, and we're basically going to compare it to a text that we want, or a command for the most part. So we're going to use a method. I mean, you'd expect, say, you might think of something like this: if you know, our edit box for the most part equals Travis, we can do something, but you can't compare two strings like that, because again, this is a string for the most part, and this is a string. You can't compare them with the equal sign, which is pretty lame. But we have to use a method, so we're going to say if dot, and it says content equals, and it's going to compare it to a character sequence. So basically that means it's going to be case sensitive for the most part, and it's a Boolean, so it's going to be true or false. So if our check or whatever is in our edit box equals, you know, whatever string we set up here, so we're going to say something like left. If I can type left, and then we're going to set up a pair of brackets right here. And so now if our edit box, if someone typed in left all all lowercase, and hit enter, or hit the button called check command, it's going to set up this variable, pull the text from it, turn it into a string, and then basically, so our check would equal left right now for the most part, and then it's going to compare it to this command left that we set up. So if our string equals left, and it's going to basically do whatever is within this statement. And then we're going to say else, just like we did before, but now we can say if. So it's basically going to check through this statement as well, and we can just kind of copy and paste basically our what we're checking here. And we're going to say if it equals center, and you guys can put another bracket here, and then we can also say else if, and then copy and paste, and this time we're going to say right. So there we go. I know we're getting a lot of brackets, so hopefully you guys are following along perfectly and you aren't getting errors or anything. But and that's also why we closed off that statement early, because looking through all these brackets, you're like, dang it, where am I supposed to close that off? For the most part, I mean, I don't know if that's confusing or not, but hopefully you guys followed along. And then we're going to set up what these are going to do within the next tutorial, as well as set up some more commands and just have some fun with this text. But that's just kind of the introduction to the else-if statements. We did the if-else the last tutorial for the most part, or 2 tutorials ago, I'm not for sure. But this is the if-else, and we also converted a edit text into a string. So that's what we've done, and then we compare basically 2 strings together by using this method content equals, and then whatever we want to compare it to. So hopefully that made some sense, and hopefully you guys are getting familiar with how to set up these buttons, so you can tell your friends, hey man, if you have a button you need set up, I'm your man. But besides that, thanks again for watching. We'll hope to see you in the next tutorial. Have a good one. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to your 29th Android tutorial for the new Boston. Again, we're going to have some text fun in this tutorial. Again, it's Travis. So hopefully you guys know my name by now. But what we're going to do is basically set up, or kind of determine how to set the gravity within Java. So before we do that, I just wanted to open up our text XML real quickly and make sure you guys have this text field at the bottom, which was our TV results, or basically our display in Java is what we called it. But again, the gravity we set center in XML, so it's in the center of the screen. But also for what we're going to do in this tutorial, this is the most important part. You want to have the layout width as fill parent. So if you guys follow along, you shouldn't have to change that or anything, but just make sure activity works for the most part. Make sure it says fill parent and the gravity is currently set to center. So now we're going to go into our Java, TextPlay Java here, and we're going to set up, or we're going to determine how to set up the gravity within XML or within Java. So we created this text view called display, and that's the text view we were just talking about in the XML. Now we're going to use it within this method. So we're going to say display, and we can say use some methods on it, and it's pretty easy. We're going to say set gravity. Makes sense, right? Because that's what we're doing. And what we're going to define basically within the parameters is we're going to refer something to something from within the gravity class. So again, this is a class called gravity, and we're going to hit dot, and then we have some choices here. So as for this is if our check string equals left, so we're going to set the gravity to left. So again, it's just gravity.left, and then we just hit our semicolon and it finishes. Again, we're getting this error because we need to add a final to our display object when we started it. So we're just going to do that. Again, it's just right there, final. And then basically we're going to do the same thing for the center and right. And just going to be the code gravity.center and gravity.right, all uppercase for the center, left, and right. So there we go. We basically have our application set up, but we're still going to do some other methods. So we're just going to copy and paste this if else and set up the brackets for our next tutorial for the most part. Hit enter, and we're going to we're just going to use one, and we're going to say blue. So I just want to show you the example of how to change the text color. So if again they say blue, we're going to set that up in the next tutorial. If you guys don't really care about the color, you can skip the next tutorial if you want. I won't be offended, but I mean either way I'm still going to cry at night when I go to bed. So alright, let's check out our application, make sure it works. Again, I hope that's pretty easy concept. That's just the text view, and then we're setting the gravity within Java. So click our text play, and then let's test it out. We're going to say left, and I'll turn the toggle off so you can see the text goes to the left. Pretty sweet, but again it's case sensitive, so if we did right like that, it's not going to work. So again, thanks guys for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial where we're going to learn about colors for the most part. Alright, see you guys later. What's going on everybody? Welcome to your 30th Android tutorial for the new Boston. We're going to learn how to set text a certain color, and then probably we're going to be done with this application after the next tutorial where I'm going to show you guys about random. And so what we're going to do is set up just kind of the bracket for the next tutorial. So again, we're just going to say else if. We're probably going to learn about setting text in this tutorial as well, even though you guys already know that, I believe. So we're going to call this one else if WTF, all uppercase, and that stands for where's the fridge. So we're going to create if the text equals where the fridge, one last little thing here. So now what we can do also is every time this button's clicked, we can say display, which is our text view, dot set text, and what we're going to do is set this equal to whatever the input is. So we're going to say check, and then it's gonna just set the text real quickly and then check if it's left, right, center, blue, or WTF, where's the fridge at. So what we can do is if it's none of those, we can just say else if as well, or we're just going to say else because this will be everything else if it's none of those options. So we're going to say else, and then we can say display dot set text to invalid again. And also we're going to just change this back to kind of the starting point. So we're going to say display dot set gravity to center. So again, we refer to the gravity class and then type center. And that's about it. We can change the text back just to get it kind of default where it started at. But now what we're going to do is we're just going to change the color of the text when it's when someone types blue in lowercase. So we're going to say display, and I mean pretty much all this is getting kind of familiar, and you guys can kind of look through these methods and figure out for the most part what they do. At least these set, because we can set some of these things up, and that's what we've pretty much used is set gravity, and this one's going to be set text. I mean we've used set text as well, but this one's going to be set text color, and we're going to give it the color blue. And again, we can refer to the color class just like we did with the set gravity, and we refer to the gravity class. We're going to refer to a class called color and just kind of scroll through some of the options. As you can see, you can put the alpha, which is transparency, red, green, blue, and an integer for the most part, and just RGB as well. Or you can just use some of these colors they have set up for you as well. So we're going to just use this blue that they have set up. And there we go. Pretty much our application's done. What we're going to do in the next tutorial is basically finish our application, because I don't want to do a ton of else if statements and show you guys simple stuff for the most part. I just wanted to show you guys the random. method in Java, because, you know, if you're creating a game or something that has a dice, and you probably want to use the random, so it's random each time. We're going to kind of go through that with this what the fridge. So I'll catch you guys then. So where's the fridge? Sorry, not what the fridge. What am I saying? That makes no sense. Alright, well, I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial. See ya.